Well, welcome back to another episode of the New Adam podcast with Man in the Mirror. I'm Ryan Reeves. I'm here with Kent Evans. Kent, what's up, man?
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me back on. This is the only place I've ever been invited back to. It's amazing. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke.
I was trying to come up with a quick comeback. I didn't have one.
There was one other place. There's one.
I remember when late night talk show hosts, Conan used to always do this thing when he'd be like, we have a really good guest tonight. Normally I don't say that. Normally I'm just lying to you, but tonight
that's hilarious.
It's a really good
That's
guest.
Hilarious.
And well, it's Christmas season. You've had a busy November. Tell me the big news that happened in your life.
Well, the highlight was one of my sons got married, and it was absolutely fantastic. In fact, as a parent, if dad or mom are listening to this, I'm sure they can relate. You have kids who have, grade school crushes and that little cute girl in kindergarten, etc. And it never works out. Like they never really date or get to the altar. In this case, they did. Like they met in 4th and 6th grade respectively, and always had eyes for each other, never wavered, never dated anybody else. And so then a few weeks ago, as of recording, they got married, and it was like a big school reunion, former teachers, it was great. And so we were on a high. My wife and I loved it. All of our family came in for it. It was a lot of fun.
You can't share that story, man, because I got kids that age. They've still got the hope. My middle son just got out of that phase. He had a crush in 4th, 5th grade, and he held it. He held on all through middle school. He's like, well, one day we'll probably go out, right? And finally I was just like, buddy, like you're in high school now. And he was like, yeah, you're right. So he moved on. But well, congrats.
Yeah, we're excited. Love this young lady. So excited.
How many of your kiddos you got married now?
So we have 5 total sons, and 2 are now married.
2 are now married.
3 are still, single, as it were. Although, do you call a 10 and a 14-year-old single? I don't know if that's allowed, but
no.
We still have some normal. Too young to be married.
Yeah, your wife has to be thrilled. She's got women around now.
But yeah, we now have 2 daughters, and we kind of kid with our boys. We're like, both of y'all chose amazingly well. As far as we're concerned, we are 2 for 2 in the daughter-in-law business. This is fantastic.
No pressure on the next 3. Right?
Exactly right. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up.
We're batting 1,000, boys. Well, it's Christmas, Advent time. Have you finished your Christmas shopping yet?
April, my wife and I, we've been married over 30 years. She does an amazing job of basically shopping for everybody in our life, and my job is to shop for her.
Mama Bear.
So, as a result, I have a relatively easy task, and I'm 95% done. There's one more thing I really want to do, but time's running out, so we'll see if I get to it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in that awkward phase where, it used to be so easy. You could just go to Target and there's a whole aisle.
Sure.
And you know what they're
loaded in.
Yeah. Now I have 2 teenagers, and it's no, I'm not going to cut you a check, for that. Like, that's not the point. But there's also this sense of like, I then backtrack that because my daughter wants to save for a car. And I'm like, well, that's smart. That's what that's how I wasn't thinking that's smart at 17. Like I was an idiot,
Well, yeah.
And so, I'm trying to encourage that. So I'm like, okay, but I'll put a bow on it or something.
We found this app, and I won't promote it in case, I don't know if it's good, but we like this. It basically lets you build gift and wish lists and then share them, and just a little bit of like a social media / gift app. Anyway, our kids are all into it, our older kids who have phones. So as a joke last night, in the app, you put what you want, So my wife and I went out and found a $45,000 minivan. And it was like, if someone were to drop a minivan in our driveway, it's the one we want. And so we put it in the app. I can't wait for my older kids to wake up and find that and go, man, should we split that, or what do we do?
Yeah, right. Were you ready for marriage when you got married?
Man, I would say no. I would say ready in the sense, let me say yes and no. I'll say yes and no. On the no side, I was very immature. I was not completely honest. In other words, I would stay late at work, and the guys at work would play a video game. I'd stick around playing a video game and then come home late and blame the traffic. And I just kind of walked in that edge of not being really honest. I didn't pay bills on time. You know, we almost had electric shut off, and I would not pay bills. I'd rack up late fees, etc. So I was irresponsible with the truth, and I was irresponsible financially. On the yes side, I had the April basically was the reason I started going to church in my early 20s. I chased this pretty girl into church. So I had at least some spiritual grounding, knowing that marriage was this covenant. I need to take it seriously. And that, I remember at one point someone asked me, why do you want to get married? And in like a blinding flash of angelic brilliance, I literally said, I think it's the best way we can honor God with our lives. And I look back and think, that's a really good answer, actually. That's a fantastic answer. But no, I mean, I was not a model citizen. In fact, it's funny you asked that, Ryan. 2-3 weeks ago at my son's rehearsal dinner, the night before the wedding, my mother-in-law, who's now been my mother-in-law for more than 30 years, who rightly suspected I was probably not the wisest choice for her daughter, she and I were talking just a couple weeks ago, and she goes, can you believe that after your start as a young man, this is what you get in your boys? Like, and she wasn't being snarky. No, she wasn't being snarky. She was just like, true. Look at what God has done in 30 years of time. And she and I had like a moment as son and mother-in-law, just going, wow, go figure. Right. You know, like, God's favor, it's amazing. We'll take it.
Wow. Yeah, and sometimes it's funny, those moments of truth are really sit there. So you talked about you had to unlearn some things. What things did you had to learn? Like what habits you're talking about being diligent, being on time. So you describe yourself as being a little bit younger in the faith, which you've said when you got married?
Oh, yeah.
Baby faith? Okay.
Yeah, baby faith. I think I had to learn, responsibility as a general topic, just like taking care of a house, paying bills on time, getting the car, have an oil change. You know, I'd go 10, 15, 20,000 miles and not even think about an oil change in the car. And so there were like, and that may seem simple, but it was a pattern of kind of neglectful living in many areas. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it.
And so that I had to learn how to be responsible over time. So for example, for a good example, in my 20s and 30s, I was episodically effective, meaning like for a week or 5 or 8, I could do something well in a short time frame. But the diligence over time, like the monthly budget or the annual filling out your taxes, you know, the things that you do that are kind of rote and kind of quote unquote administrative. I was terrible at that. I had to unlearn a lot of that. I had to be broken from some sinful patterns like lust and other things that God really needed to deal with me on. And so I had to find ways to walk in purity. I had to find guys who I admire and get around them and learn how to live from them. My dad was not like a deadbeat. He wasn't a bad person, but there wasn't really like a spiritual foundation laid in my teen years. So I kind of had to lay that. God had to lay all that in my life in my 20s. And so I was doing in my 20s what a lot of smarter guys would have done in their teens.
Yeah. It's interesting. Been looking at all kinds of research lately through Man in the Mirror, and some of it's to come out, so I won't give a bunch of punchlines. But what we're noticing is in the research is that this is what's happening essentially this is my theory, just my theory, but the evidence is sort of saying as our life expectancy gets longer, for whatever reason, right now, it is taking men longer to form. Like we could have expected generations ago, a boy at 17, 18 to kind of have a lot of the stuff kind of beat into him, frankly. But those are the days. Like life expectancy was 50s, 60s, but just a couple centuries ago. Like you're middle age, you hit 25, 30. So now people,
right.
Now people are like, well, I have longer, I don't have to worry as much, this kind of stuff. And the number one thing we're seeing in all the research is that men at the age of 18 or 21 are not ready. It's not that they're broken. It's like I said, it's not that they what the younger folks are calling adulting. The adulting part didn't get onboarded.
Yeah.
And it's not just the screens. The screens are a symptom. It's not just helicopter or aloof parenting. That's a contributing factor. It's just for whatever reason, people feel like they have longer to wait, and so they just wait. The average age when young folks are getting married right now is 30. Like that's astronomically late for our generation. And so I don't have any solutions to that, but I'm just saying what we're noticing is, if you want to be a successful parent, you want to start things sooner. You need to start. You need to get focused on your kids' maturity through adversity sooner. And I think we have we have a couple generations where that didn't happen.
Well, I agree, and I don't know if I would. I don't want to start some public debate with you. I don't disagree with you. I would say I do think the absence of fathers is a major contributing factor. And I don't think to toss it and go, well, aloof parenting is not the problem. I don't know.
No, absentee parenting, definitely. That's a major. Yeah.
I think when dads unplug, two major things happen, right? One, kids don't get the actual instruction, right? They don't get taught to change the oil in their car. They don't get taught to balance a checkbook. They don't get taught the basics of living. But I think even perhaps more important, they just don't see a good example. I was texting a friend of mine this morning. His name is Mitch. And Mitch has suffered from tremendous loss over the last 6-7 years. Adult children who died, he's had a very, very rough go of it. And I sent him a Bible verse today that was 1 Corinthians 11:1, where Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. And I was just telling him, he has walked the way of suffering and pain very, very faithfully. He has been public about his suffering. He's been public about the challenges that they've had. He's been public about how it's affected him. At the same time, he has been faithfully plugged into church, to ministry, to his marriage. And so I just sent him a note. I just said, hey, man, I'm going to follow you as you follow Christ because you've set an amazing example. And I just think that's the thing that it's hard to measure. It's not, we won't find an easy study with data, from Barna or Man in the Mirror on it. But what you'll find is not only are we missing the instruction from our dads when they're gone, we're just missing their example. And guys like Mitch, guys like you, guys like Scott, Brett, all the team at Man in the Mirror, you guys all walk through life in ways that are exemplary and worthy of being modeled after. And I think that's what's a lot of 16 to 20-year-old young men are missing.
Yeah. I do feel like there's a generational gap. I mean, I bring this up at Man in the Mirror all the time. We're all Gen X, the guys that are talking and making decisions. And at least Brett and I don't want to speak for the others, but Brett and I, we're the Gen X, and we're just whatever, man. We're the, I grew up, I wasn't grunge, but I always say I have this grunge personality where I'm whatever, never mind, kind of vibe. Where we find this because we tried to actually train up folks to be spiritual fathers, and it was folks my age and older, and we said, hey, you got a lot to share, and all of us, not people at Man in the Mirror, but most of the folks we were talking to were saying, I don't know if I have anything to offer, whatever, man, that just sounds like a lot of me, shouldn't this be just about Jesus? Why would I model for something? I'm a failure. We put ourselves in the timeout box.
Yeah.
So very often, at least for me, it feels like a personality thing I got to work on, where it's no, I have something to share. I have something to give.
Well, I'd even double down on that, Ryan. I would say, I think I was speaking last week at a conference, and I just said, hey, I don't think most dads have a fatherhood problem. They have a theology problem. And here's what I meant by that. What I meant by that was, if you think you have nothing to offer, God is a liar. The end.
The end.
You are wrong. You're not socially inept or you're an introvert. No, stop. You are theologically and biblically inaccurate, because God said you are the light of the world. God said you're my co-heir with Christ. God said, and on it goes. He said he's given you gifts. 1 Peter 4:10, whatever gift you've been given, use it to serve the body. So you're going to tell God I got no gifts? Stop. It's not personality. It's not generation. It's not Gen Y. It's not your Enneagram. You're wrong biblically. Okay, super. You may not think the Bible is the authoritative truth on earth. Sick. Then let's go backward. Let's start at a different place. But if you're a Christian who believes you have nothing to offer, you're calling God a liar. Full stop. Let's start there and unpack that issue, because the issue is not your personality, right? Sorry, it's not. Not you. I don't mean that, Ryan. I mean, like me.
No, yeah.
I've got things to offer. They happen to be my mistakes and my successes, and I can help coach younger men to both avoid what I have done, but also to do what I have done. I've been married 30 years. I love my wife more than ever. 2025 has been the best year of our marriage. It's not because I'm a genius, but it's because God's blessed some things we've decided to do. We put some things first, and I think those are worth talking about. So I love to challenge guys on their theology, because if they get bound and they go, I don't think God's a liar. Well, if you say you have nothing to offer, now where are we, man? Where are we? Help me. So I just love to encourage guys, because to your point, every man, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, every man I meet is my superior in some way, and in that I endeavor to learn. You are in some way an expert at something I know nothing about. Let's find out what that is and then trade notes. It's amazing.
Yeah. And trade life too.
Yeah, bro. That's a great way to say it.
Right. I think that whenever I hear someone say, I don't know what I have to offer, if you dig a little deeper, it's usually two assumptions, and they're not the same person. But one guy will say, I have nothing to offer. And what he often means, to your point, is I'm not good enough to help anybody, which is bad theology. That's all of us. Like we're all the people at the foot of the cross. Enough.
That's true. And you still should help people. Let's go.
That's rather the point.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's one. And then you have to get into their heart. Usually, I find with guys like that, there's a hesitancy to be vulnerable and real with another man. That's a father wound stuff. There's lots of little pieces in there that are more that side. Another piece is, and this I really want to tackle, is they seem to think that discipling or helping or feeding into another man's life is a process of information disseminating. So they think they need like a theology degree. Like, well, I don't have all the answers. Like, what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to? And the question is if you knew that's all of us. Again, we're all in the same boat. Like, the point isn't, you're a Bible answer man. You're not a Wikipedia or an AI agent. It's rather, let's do stuff and talk about life. It's going through things together.
I met a guy last week at an event, and his name is T-Ray, and I observed two things about him, and then I caught him at breakfast one morning so that I could tell him these two things. One, he encouraged other people. And I promise this will connect back to what you just said. It may seem like a slight diversion, but he encouraged other people. Like he called me out one morning and said, hey, great job last night. I talked for 4 minutes and it wasn't my best. It was just 4 or 5 minutes. It was quick, but he chose to encourage me. Then when we had breakfast, he asked me really smart, thoughtful questions. And Ryan, shocker, he actually listened to my answers. It was amazing. And I remember telling him, I'm going, bro, you do two things most men are terrible at doing. And he said, what are they? And I said, number one, you encourage other men. Amazing. 1 out of 30 guys that I meet have the capacity.
It's rare.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
Secondly, you ask really thoughtful questions. And then I get the sense you're paying attention to my answers. Like it was, and we just had, it was like I was meeting with a guy from a different planet. Like he was so unique and so different. And I thought, that's too bad. Like I want to be him when I grow up. Yeah. Like I want to be that guy who can encourage other people and who can be curious and thoughtful. Jesus asked over 300 questions and he probably knew the answer to 299 of them. Like he didn't need information. He was asking to connect. And I just find it's a missing element in our society.
Yeah, this just happened to me a couple weeks ago as well. I had a battery go dead and was in like a little shopping area, a little mall or strip mall, and looked around. Nobody close to me had jumper cables. Well, next door there was some construction guys working. They were just the loudest, sweatiest, fattest, smokingest guys on the planet, which is what I grew up with. So I'm more comfortable around them than I am around like high society. So I just walked in there. I was like, "Hey guys, anybody got a cables?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I didn't look like them, but they were surprised I was just kind of, I guess, walking into their space. And this one heavy guy walks out, and he's gotten, like, I think he had just a couple of teeth, like just real hard living guy. And he starts putting the battery stuff. Actually, no, he drove. I remember now. He went all the way around back, and it took him like 10 minutes. He drove his car all the way back to the front because he couldn't park there as a worker. And he did all this for me. And then he sat there, and I was just like, "Man, I didn't want to say, can I give you some money? What an insult. But I was like, can I buy a coffee? I think is how I said it.
You need some more tobacco? Whatever, something.
Can I get some Rust-Oleum for your beat up truck? It's just like that vibe of jokes. And we were already joking that way. We were totally being friends. And I just said, "Man, I just said, can I buy you a cup of coffee?" He's like, "No, man." He goes, "You know what you can do for me?" He goes, "What?" He said, "Just be nice like this to somebody else."
Wow.
And he goes into this whole like 5 minutes about like what we've lost as a society. Like, he said, "I feel like anybody should be able to ask me for jumper cables, but nobody wants to anymore. They always think, everybody's scary." And he just starts basically doing like a 2-minute sermon standing there on the side of the road.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So it's true. Humbling. Like there's a disconnect. And humbling. Humbling.
Right.
Yeah. Something we always need quite a lot of, even as we age.
I want to live. I want to live like an overflow life, right? Where just this morning I was reading in Proverbs chapter 10. It says, "The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life." And every time I read that verse in Proverbs, I'm reconvicted of something I said yesterday or 2 days ago or 5 days ago. And I'm like, that wasn't exactly a fountain of life moment with my mouth. And I just was praying again this morning. I was like, "God, help me to have a mouth that is a fountain of life."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just said it a bit ago, but I have often said the Gen X comment I make about myself. I always say I'm Gen X, but I was raised on a diet of David Spade and like hardcore sarcasm. Chandler Bing. Everything is just a burn and an eye roll. And I remember very vividly in my 20s, like, and frankly into my 30s, and occasionally still now, I have to be like, "Hey, Ryan, this is not a comedy roast. Like your job right now is not to see how much you can burn that person or tear down that idea." I always used to say, I'm not a shepherd, I'm a butcher. Like I slice and dice. So very often I'm, here's how I get out of it though, or get around it, or get through it. Maybe the better word is I've learned to be sarcasm at myself. I just like the wordplay. It's just banter for me. Like I even when I do it to someone else, it's harmless. If I could sound like I'm just tearing you up and down, but it's more just I find wordplay really funny. And so I can do it to myself and I won't offend myself. That's the new thing. But it's because of what you were just saying. It's like I've seen people wither under too much sarcasm, too much cynical. And as the kids say today, I create vibes around me where like Ryan has just got this wall of sarcasm up, and it's toxic eventually.
Yeah, I love to laugh. I love to goof off. And for me, that there's an edge to that is not productive.
No. Yeah.
And I'm always experimenting with where that edge is. And as a communicator, I like to use humor to open people up just so I can get the truth in. Like it's Trojan horse for me. Humor's a Trojan horse.
Same. Yeah, same.
However, sarcasm usually backfires. There's a humor that, I don't know, there's humor that works, there's humor that doesn't. I remember hearing a guy. It's
got to be like your best friend,
Well, or it's so well chosen. So I remember a friend of mine was speaking to a big room, 1,400 people, and the CEO of the company was doing the intro for my friend. And the CEO got up and said, "Well, this is the second time in 2 days I get to be the opening act for Mark here." And it was so funny. It was self-deprecating. The CEO was taking himself down one notch. He was paying Mark a subtle compliment, tongue in cheek. And I just thought, now that's really good humor. It was nice. He didn't make fun of Mark at all. In fact, quite the opposite. He was giving Mark a compliment. He kind of made fun of himself a little, but it wasn't over the top. Like, I have nothing to offer, I'm a bumbling fool. It was nice. And I just filed it away as like, nice. That's a bullseye. Yeah. Well done.
I remember I was 23. I remember still to this day, I was standing in church talking to a pastor, and there was a very, very big, important figure in the church. I mean, he was the guy that if he walked up to me and this pastor talking, the pastors had every right to turn from me and say, yes, what do you need? Like, he's that level of donor and elder. I don't think he was an elder, but just a very important figure. He stood at my shoulder quietly while I finished my conversation.
Yeah.
And didn't interrupt. And then I was done. He goes, hey, are you done? And then he stepped in, and I was just like, he didn't have to do that. Like, I'm just some kid, and there's a male presence that when you're confident in yourself, you can take yourself down notches. Right. All these things don't threaten you, because I think they're not the important thing anyway. The important thing anyway is your walk, is your the way people see you, your character. All these things matter more than status. And unfortunately, too many of us chase status.
So true. Well, and we don't have enough time to get me started on the soapbox of important people versus unimportant people, which is again, let's go back, a theological problem, right? That is untrue, right? That's untrue. There aren't important people. There aren't important people and unimportant people. However, granted, there's people with more influence or less influence. I remember one time, Ryan, true story, I got on an airplane, bumped into a friend of mine, and we started chatting it up. We hadn't seen each other in a while. And I said, so where are you going? We were both going to Dallas, but he was continuing on. He said, I'm going out to LA. And he said fairly loudly, I'm going to meet with so-and-so. This was a new client of his in his line of work. And it was not a household name, but real close. I mean, very famous guy. And he was very proud to now have landed this, client. And I said, hey, congrats. That's a good land for you. And he goes, yeah. And while I'm out there, I'm going to meet with some smaller people as well. Ooh, Ryan. Now I'm only 5'3", so part of this is biographical. I probably took more offense than I should have. But I looked back at him and I said, I think what you meant to say is people with less influence.
Yeah. Right.
And he looked at me and goes, yeah, that's what I meant. But it wasn't what he meant.
No.
Right? There's two kinds of people in the world, big and little, important and unimportant, significant, insignificant. And I just think, wow, that is not how Jesus walked on this earth. That is not how he walked on this earth. So it's encouraging to hear you say that this guy who had clearly, a face and a name, didn't leverage it. Like he wore it very loosely. Man, that's really encouraging.
And I would tell anybody young, your intuitive radar for older guys is stronger than you think. When you get that, this feels like Michael Scott. Like, I'm feeling a certain, like, you're not. I was just in a meeting. Was last week, and there was a one of the people we're meeting about some data science stuff related to studying men. Is all this stuff we're doing, and a very important professor from Johns Hopkins in the room. Also, was probably the most humble man in the room, and was just like, I'm here to help. Like, let's have a great meeting. Like, and literally there was a moment where someone was telling him something where, like, I think he might have been the guy, like, he should be the guy to tell you
once. And he's like, I wrote the book.
It was almost like that. Yeah. And he didn't care. He didn't need to prove anything. And later he clarified so that they could speed up the conversation and not talk down to him. But it's when you see that, chase that. When you see that in a man, an older, successful man, just hang out with that guy. And sometimes it's not easy, but the humility over time matters. Here's one point I was my old seminary professor brought out. He said, he says, we know, obviously, generally Paul's chronology of the letters. There's some debate about the couple, what comes before. But he said, what's interesting is if you put them together chronologically, Paul's language about himself gets worse over the letters.
That's a great insight.
The I, Paul, chief among sinners is one of the last things he says about himself.
That's so great.
He's turning into an old guy that's like, yeah, I'm the worst of the worst. He says he's a sinner his whole life, but the language seems to intensify as age comes upon him.
What a great insight. Yeah, I was telling my wife about a year and a half ago, I'll veil the name, even though it'd be a compliment. I got to sit in a room for 2 days with a guy who was kind of one of my ministry heroes. And there were like 10 of us. And he was by far the most skilled and accomplished and, just farthest down the road than any of us. But I observed throughout the 2 days, he was the last to speak on almost every topic. He had an open notebook in front of him, and he wrote things down. And when people would say something, he'd go, "Ooh, nice," and then just write it down and moved on. Like he didn't say, "That reminds me of what I said in my 6th book." He didn't say any of that. And he asked a lot of questions. I just remember thinking, man, sometimes you meet your heroes and you're like, be better if I just knew him from afar. Up close, he's not super inspiring. But in this case, man, it was the opposite. The more time I spent with this guy, the more I was like, oh my goodness, just what an interesting dude.
Well, last question I got for you for today. You mentioned in passing that you and your wife prioritized a few things that made your marriage sing over the years. What's one off the top of your head?
Man, good question. One of the things that we prioritized was studying scripture together. And it's not that we do it every day. We don't do it every single day, but we will, even now, we're both in our mid-50s, a couple of times a year, we'll go through a 2 to 3 month Bible study at roughly the same pace. We may not even sit down and study it like across the table, but she'll do it in her quiet time in the morning. I'll do it in my quiet time in the morning. And at night, when we go to bed, we're comparing notes.
Yeah.
And there's probably 10 other things, but one of them was we would try to align, and we've taken a bunch of classes together. I've taught a bunch of Bible studies that she came in and sat in. And then that night we would, unpack and debrief. Yeah. And I think having a thread of scripture study time kind of run through our marriage at different moments has really benefited each other. And even like we both recently read through Hebrews, and if you've ever spent any time in Hebrews, there's some really sticky theological points in there.
Yeah.
And she and I would talk them out and wrestle with them and kind of come to almost no conclusion, like just kind of be like, I don't know, man. Like I feel like it's a 4-base race and I got to second, but I can't find my way home, and she would feel the same way, So I think that, creating biblical dialogue in our marriage where we're talking and reasoning through scripture together, there's something about that that's really fruitful. And again, we're not 5-day-a-weekers in terms of doing that together, but several times a year, we will align our schedules for a month or two and make sure we're both going through the same stretch of scripture.